Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Vincent Ladougne from Archimed. Welcome to the pitch area of the Synergy 2022. I'm the first one to inaugurate this area, so I'm waiting for the kickoff. Okay, we can start. I've been asked to speak in English. What I suggest is that you can visit me after. The stand of Archimed is just here. I am together with Raphaël Potier and Théo Bourrez. We will welcome any question, and we can discuss as well in French just after the pitch. But for this short pitch about Archimed, this will be in English. So what is Archimed? Archimed is a dedicated company that we've set up between two French groups, Ponticelli and Matière. We've set up the company in Occitania, where we've got our first floating wing project. And the main activities of Archimed is the fabrication of floating foundation for offshore wind projects. So we are really a fabricator, and we do all the surrounding activities, like load out, float off of the floater once it's built, the integration of the turbine on the floater, and possibly some maintenance services. The positioning of Archimed in the value chain of the project is really to be an EPC contractor for the floating foundation fabrication. So as you may know, we've got usually a client with a project company. So in the case of our project in Occitania, it's Archimed. And we've got usually several contracts. So the positioning of Archimed is really to be the fabricator of the floating through a construction and procurement contract. Then we can also integrate the turbine on the floater. Therefore, we've got this dotted line on the turbine scope, but we are usually not involved in the cables contracts or of course the supply of the turbine and the T&I contracts. So main contractor, that's what we are doing for Archimed. Archimed is a joint venture between CARE and Total. And for the Archimed project that I will describe later, we are doing the construction of steel foundations in France, in Occitanie. The focus then of Archimed is to be involved in the French supply chain and to be involved in the industrialization of the fabrication of the floater. So after this pilot project, we aim at carrying on and being a service provider for the developers who need fabrication of steel foundations in France. So the Archimed project we are very proud of that. It's a pilot project. So the French state, as you know, has invested a lot of money in 4 pilot farms. There are already 3 in construction. And these projects, being pilots, the vocation is to really build the floaters in France and to demonstrate that we can do that in the French territory. And that's what we are doing with the Archimed project. So the floaters we are building in for Archimed are 100% made in Occitania. So Occitania, for our foreign visitor, is the region of Toulouse and Montpellier in the south of France. And what we are doing is doing pre-assembly of blocks in a factory that Matière operates in the north of Occitania. You can see a picture of the factory. This factory in Bagnac is specialized in flat panels welding. So we are building small blocks in the factory. We are transporting the blocks to the Port La Nouvelle fabrication area. And then we are delivering the full assembly and float off of the floaters from Port La Nouvelle. So altogether, it's about 600,000 man-hours for this project, which is 3 steel foundations. The design is from Ideol. So Ideol, you've seen already this design several times, but this time we are doing it in steel. So the difference between steel and concrete is obviously the weight. The weight of this floater is about 3,000 tons, so much lighter than steel. It makes it easier to build on the quayside in Port La Nouvelle. We are planning to have approximately 200 operators mobilized on the site in Port La Nouvelle, and it will take about 15 months to prefabricate the blocks in the factory, and about 18 months for the assembly on the quayside. So we are starting now the fabrication. Therefore, the loadout is expected in 2024, mid-2024, to be precise, where the floaters will be connected to the grid. So a fairly straightforward timeline. Just to give you an idea of what do we mean by block assembly. So each floater is divided in 92 blocks. You can see that these floaters, they look simple, but in fact they are fairly complex with a lot of reinforcements and a lot of inside, I would say, panels. So we are dividing each floater in 92 blocks. These blocks are then transported by road to Port La Nouvelle, welded together to create this floating foundation. So I mentioned 3,000 tons. They are fairly big objects. A floater like that is about 42 meters long by 20 plus meter high. So it's like a very large building. You can imagine that there will be quite a lot of activities on site to assemble the block. So integration on the quayside, and then we'll do the loadout with a barge. So that's the Port La Nouvelle new renewable energy terminal that has been built already by the region. That was the first phase. Now the region Occitanie is building another phase, which will extend this terminal to a much larger area on the north side. So they are currently filling the basin with a contractor to extend the terminal. But at present, we have already this area of about 4 hectares to build these 3 foundations. And the site will be fully occupied when we'll build in parallel the 3 floaters with some cranes. And this is the heavy quay already available as well. And on the quay, then we'll have a very large crane to do the integration of the turbine once the floaters are at sea. For the float out, we'll use a barge and we'll transport the floaters with SPMTs in order to put the floaters on the barge, and then the barge, semi-submersible, is performing the float-off operations. So that's the site in Port La Nouvelle. That's the project we are doing. Now I just want to tell you about a bit about our plan for the future. Archimed is not dedicated to this project. We are really there to be there for the long time, for the long term, and we are planning to be in a position to contribute to the objectives of the French market, which is to have approximately 40 gigawatt of offshore wind by 2050, as you know. And we are here to contribute to the challenges that the supply chain actors are facing, which is first to invest in order to scale up the production. Here we are producing 3 floaters in 18 months. The aim is in the future to be able to produce at least 1 or 2 floaters per month, so a big scale up. So really to move to the industrial size of this industry. We need also to adapt the floaters to the increase in size in terms of the turbines. You know, we are talking about 15 to 20 megawatt now per turbine. This pilot project is based on 10 megawatt, so nearly double the size of the turbines, which will have consequences on the fabrication and on the size of the floaters. We need to do all that by achieving competitive construction costs, and that's very important for our clients, the developers, because at the end of the day, they need to produce electricity in a competitive manner. And of course, capital cost is part of this competitivity. So we are there to be competitive. And we need also to work with the existing port infrastructure. That's where cooperation is very important. And I'll come back to that a bit later. So we really think that local companies in France like ourselves, but with also our supply chain partners, we can really contribute to this new industry. And we are really convinced that Archimed and partners will be able to deliver large quantities of floaters. If necessary, we'll have to build a gigafactory. We do that in other industries. So we like this word because the quantities of of steel, of floaters, and of outputs that we need to foresee for this industry is quite important, and it's the reason why we need to be ready for developing the industrial tools necessary for this market. So when we say adaptation to the market needs, there are really three phases. To summarize, today we are doing a pilot project, so 3 floaters, 10 megawatt. We've got some local content. I mentioned 200 local workers, some supply chain, but the local content requirement in the project is low. However, we are doing the project 100% in France. We are using the existing facilities with the existing construction capabilities of our companies. Tomorrow, we need to start being ready for the first, I would say, commercial or pre-commercial projects. When we mention 250 megawatt, that's approximately 10 to 15 floaters. And to do that, we'll have probably to develop more industrialized and automatized yards to assemble the floaters at least. So we need to foresee an assembly yard close to the site of operation of these wind farms. For that, we'll have already a first phase of investment, and we need, in that case, maybe to import the components from other factories, either in France or in Europe. But clearly, there's a need for assembly close to the site. So that, I would say, phase 1. And phase 2, on the long term, if the market is there, we are talking about 20 to 50 floaters to be built every year with 20 megawatt turbines. So that will probably necessitate to have our own production capability in terms of components. And to be competitive, we are expecting a large level of automatization and robotization of the site, which will develop probably in the 5 to 10 years to come. So 3 phases for the development of Archimed, and we really need to work with you, with the developers, with the clients to understand the needs, knowing that in terms of design, we are not linked to any design. We are here to build the steel floaters that will be the most competitive for this industry. What is important is the cooperation between the port infrastructure and the industry. And as you may know, the French state has issued 2 AMIs, we call that in France, so appel à manifestation d'intérêt, one for the ports and one for the industries. And the aim is that we work together with the ports. So we are talking to several ports in France, not only in the Mediterranean, but also in other facades. And we hope that all together we can design the best tool for the future, the tool which will facilitate the production of 20 to 50 floaters a year, which is a need for the industry in 2030. So we don't have so much time. We need to work all together with the port infrastructures, with the supply chain, to be able to achieve this common project, which is to build really floaters in France adapted to the market in a competitive manner. So early engagement is the key. That's what we are doing now with most of the developers, designers, and port infrastructures. We all have the same aim, which is to ensure that we've got the right sizing of the infrastructure. And we must make sure that we organize the supply chain also in terms of job, in terms of training, in terms of subcontractors. And we need to focus on local companies. That's why Archimed is, of course, signing the chart of local content, which is the chart which is being promoted by the French developers and now by the tier 1 contractors. And we'll be signing this chart during the Synergy 2022. In terms of local supply chains, for those who are wondering what I mean by local supply chain, there are a lot of services. I will not describe all the services that we will need for this industry, but clearly there is a need for service providers, which are listed here. And the aim is to really have an infrastructure which is suitable for mass production of floaters. And that's an example of a possible implantation of an industrial site in Port-la-Nouvelle, where we are currently working. Just for information, the small site I was showing is just this small triangle. That's where we are currently working. And this is the investment that the region is doing in Port-la-Nouvelle. So that's a new terminal that will be ready in 2025, where we can possibly extend our activities for the Mediterranean market. So in a short word, I hope that Archimed will be part of this new industry, and we really believe that we've got the competencies in France through companies like Mathieu and Ponticelli, and also our supply chain partners, to develop this industry on the French territory, maximizing the local content and being competitive like we are seeing in other countries for bottom fixed market. Thank you very much.